Hi everyone, this is Raymond Wood from the Raymond Wood podcast. We're coming live from Brisbane in Australia. I'm very, very excited to do this podcast because we're beaming all the way back to the UK, to England. And we are with a very, very old friend of mine, a guy by the name of Stuart McClarty. How are you, Stuart?
Yeah, very well. So as you said, it's an early morning for myself, but no, I wouldn't get up for anyone else but yourself, Ray. So thanks for this.
Thanks, Stuart. So what time is it back in the UK at the moment?
It's 5:38, so
Wow.
hopefully everyone else sees the commitment that I'm giving for you guys this morning.
I really appreciate it, mate. It's 3:30 in the afternoon here. So, just for all my listeners, we said we were going to be looking at different podcasts and different areas that we were going to discuss, and this is one that I've wanted to do since episode one. Is around development of football and speaking to some of the high level coaches back in the UK. I was very fortunate to meet Stuart along my journey in coaching, going back as far as 2010 to 14. And just for our listeners, we'll go from the beginning, actually, Stu, from when you first started coaching in your journey, because I don't even know your full journey from start to end. And it'd be good just to give everyone a bit of an update. So what age did you start coaching, and when did you really start to think about that this is going to be a job for me and a career for me?
Yeah, thanks, Ray. Thanks again for inviting me, and it's a pleasure to be here. So, really, my journey started when I was 14. So, I was a aspiring footballer, trying to make it. I was working. I was sort of playing in a local academy. And I just felt that I needed a backup plan. That if things didn't work out with the football, that I always had something else within football that would be useful for me. So I got my referees qualification, started refereeing, and then as soon as I could, I started to get around coaching. So I started with my own school team. So I was year 11 at the time, and now I said to the teacher, "Could I come and help and shadow you as a the year seven team, and work with the school team there?" And it just sort of rolled from there. Where I really enjoyed it. Started my qualifications when I could when I was 16. Moved and offered my services or offered my time with a grassroots team, and progressed from level one into level two qualification, and then moved into uh, other areas of coaching. So when I was 21, I started to go into schools, do the school coaching. So in England, schools can offer additional sort of PE lessons through other sports coaches. So that's who I was. So I was upskilling myself as a coach, not just in football, but in different areas of the game, in different sports. So one minute I'm doing gymnastics, the next minute I'm doing football, the next minute I'm doing sometimes dance. Maybe not my best lessons, but dance was one of those. And then it was into other sort of invasion games. You got hockey and basketball and things like that. So there was a lot of crossover there. And then I've rolled into from that point into being more of an expert, obviously in the football, which was always my passion or always my area of strength where I wanted to go. And then moved into some time with Manchester United Soccer School, so I was able to do that in weekends and summer programs and things like that. So I was visiting different parts of the country or different parts of the world.
Just for our
Um,
listeners, Stuart, where was it you were born, and where did you pretty much grow up?
so I was always born in Northampton, in England. So I've always lived there. Family have come from London, and we moved to this sort of area in Northampton. So I've always lived here. But my travelling comes most of my travelling. I spoke to my wife about this the other week, saying that a lot of my travelling around the world has come through my football coaching. Been able to travel to different places of the world, and been very lucky and blessed to be able to do those things.
Yeah, so just for our listeners, we've spoke about it before, but I was very, very fortunate to live in Northampton. It's a beautiful place, and for anyone who hasn't been, I'd recommend it's worth a visit. And I've done a little bit of work with Northampton Town and in their academy system, and very lucky to work alongside and work with. Who was a very good coach at the time of the top team, a guy called Malcolm Crosby. And then I was very fortunate to head across to Leicester, and that's when I first met Stuart. So Stuart, when obviously one of the areas that I touched on, it was very evident for me. I knew at 16, 17, I wasn't going to be a pro. I was training once a week. I was playing once a week. I knew it wasn't enough at that age. And someone said to me, you know, that doesn't have to be the end or the journey of football over just because you don't make it as a player. You know, you can do it as a coach. And obviously I seen you as a very young coach and a very talented coach coming through. You obviously then made that decision. You wanted to push on and kick on with your career. So when did you start taking it really serious? Like when you started doing your UEFA badges and that, what age was you then?
Yeah, so I think I got my UEFA B license when I was 21. So it was one of the
Wow.
youngest ones to go through that process. And I was really motivated, like as a sort of 16, 17 year, 18-year-old boy. Like, you know, I was still a boy at the time. I wasn't really a man. It was a case of I was going into environments where it was just full of men, you know, or ladies in that environment. Not so much back then, but there was still some of those around. And I was one of the youngest ones, if not the youngest ones on those courses. And I just felt that this was my calling. This is what I was, you know, tending to sort of to love and enjoy. And I was love still playing and things like that, but I was always at risk of getting injured, and that did happen. Um, and when I sort of stopped playing when I was about 22, I got two bad injuries in the same year. Playing non-league football, I was earning just as much as I would have been coaching than I would have been playing, and it was getting up for the Tuesday night games or travelling here and travelling there. And it's like, well, I could go and take a session with 14-year-old boys and still have the same passion and love that I would have had if I was playing right back in the non-league game. So I made the decision to fully commit to the coaching. That's where the schools was great for that because I was able to you know basically work eight till 4 every day, Monday to Friday, and then go into evening football coaching with an elite sort of development centre that was based in Northampton that was connected to Leicester City at the time.
Yeah, and going back to, I remember you working at Manchester United and seeing you done stuff with the soccer schools. What do you think with the Manchester United tour? Because I think I told you many years ago, I'd done a lot of coaching in the US myself. And like, what do you think the 2 or 3 lessons you learned as a coach traveling and working for Manchester United that now helps you nowadays in your development?
Oh, the amount of development and progress I made as a coach during that. I was there with them for 7 years, and the standard of coaching was excellent. So you had a lot of academy coaches, current academy coaches that were working in that game or around that time, that program, because it was additional hours and everyone was sort of trying to find more hours and more coaching. For me, it was around the history of the club, so that was a
Yeah.
massive thing. I grew up as a Manchester United fan, so that was always a nice little touch for me to see those things. Um, but yeah, it was around the history of the club and selling the story and selling what the club is about and what the values are of the club and things like that. Additionally to that is this is how we treat and this is how we look after staff. So there was always events where they've gone above and beyond for myself or others, and it was just the professionalism of the coaching and the program that had to be. So, you know, the players would be turning up at 10 o'clock in the morning, but we would be there from 7:30 setting up flags, banners. It was the environment that was created around wherever we were. You know, I was literally on a cow field in Kenya at one point. We had to kick the cow off the pitch, or we had to get someone to kick the cow off the pitch. The rocks were for goals. You know, that was the environment we had there. And then I go somewhere like Bulgaria, which was completely different. I've been to Norway. I've been to Russia as well. So the whole and that helped to shape my coaching as well, where I'm having to mould and develop and adapt to the culture of the places. But there's still the key theme around what Manchester United was about, what we represented. You'd show the same sort of video around this is the club, this is what we're trying to aspire to. And whether you are in a cowfield in Kenya or you're somewhere more local in the UK on a roadshow, there was still that level of professionalism that we would do the same quality of work or best coaching we could possibly give to the people that we were working with.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like one of the things that we work with my staff in Australia and the importance of consistency and practicing and repeating. And I think that as a coach, I remember when I was in the US for 4 to 5 years, and even coaching at community level, kids who couldn't really play football, but just the consistency you got from doing the same warm up every day, the same session, and learning different ways of variance in the session. And then I think that then actually goes back into players, like when you're working with players, is that teaching them that it's not going to be all exciting all the time. It is got to be consistent. It's got to be the same session. You rinse and repeat 100 times. Now, obviously, moving on from working for Manchester United, you've then gone on further. Where are you up to with your coaching badges at the moment in UEFA? How far have you gone with them?
So yeah, I passed my UEFA A license around about 5 years ago now. I was actually on the same course as Danny Clark, who you had on
Are
one
you
of your
with
previous
Danny?
podcasts.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so that was a great sort of time with Danny on the
Danny's
St
amazing.
George's Park.
Yeah.
I know he's been out with you guys, so yeah, he obviously was a great sort of person to bounce off, and we talked a lot about different things from the difference between his club to my club. But yeah, no, a UEFA A license. Another pathway that the English FA have is what they call the Youth Awards. So when they first came out, it was Module 1, Module 2, Module 3, which is more around an A license or a UEFA license that fits more to the smaller, younger children. The A license themes were generally for the 11v11 format. So any coaches that were working at that time for me was around the smaller formats, so 7v7s, 9v9s. They fit into a program which would fit to more to the foundation phase age groups. So I was able to complete the Advanced Youth Award, which was sort of an equivalent of the A license there. So I've got both the 11v11 sort of style and the small-sided style from a footballing coaching background. I was always I was blessed with an opportunity to go into a Premier League course, which is quite unique and different, which is called the Elite Coach Apprenticeship Scheme, so ECAS. And that's around you as a coach, but not the X's and O's as coaches.
Yeah.
So that education's more around who you are, your self-reflection, your personality traits, your leadership styles, how you deal with conflict, how you deal with things. So all the things that a coach would spend a lot of time on, talking with parents, dealing with challenges, retain and release decisions and discussions around those sort of things, and becoming a more of a leader or more of a support network for the different departments, because in the environment I work in, the coach seems to be quite high up on the leadership role, if that makes sense. Yeah. So there's a lot of support departments that will feed into the coach. So the coaches have got to develop those softer skills and those leadership skills whenever they're in the building and working with the players or the staff.
Yeah, brilliant. Now, in regards to like coach education, obviously one of the things that we work on and we try and educate players and families and even people within the federation in Australia is that we've got to understand that Australia probably started playing football properly 30 years ago, where like in the UK, there's clubs as old as 140, 150 years old. And it's the same with like the coach education, we're trying to encourage them to get better at it. But like one of the big things that we're constantly pushing is that from an understanding in the UK, when you do your UEFA B and you do your UEFA A license, how long do you think it took you from when you started your B to when you completed your A? What was the period of time? Is it 6 months? Is it 5 years? How many years does it accumulate? Just to give an example to our Australian followers, because they don't get this, and I'll tell you what the Australian version is, and it'll probably blow your mind.
So a UEFA B course would generally take you a year to 18 months, because you have different blocks of work, and that takes you that period of time. So from me taking my UEFA B at 21 and then my UEFA A was probably around about 8 to 9 years, is taking that period to get to that point. Part of the work is going, okay, so I'm a UEFA B coach, that's a certain level, and then I'm having to work towards becoming a UEFA A license. To get onto a UEFA A license, you have to be, the priority is given to an academy coach or someone who's working in first team level or working towards the professional game. And then if you're not working in a professional game, you might be further down. So, and also if you're working in the older age players. So that's taken me a few years to get to that point in my career, but also to then get onto a course. The actual course for A license can take you anything from 18 months to 3-4 years. I still know people that are still working towards gaining a qualification, and it's not that you turn up for the day and you get signed off, and everyone's on the same day. It's all competency based by assessors come to your environment with your players and they work with you there. So it's very different in the sense of that you could be on a program or a course for 4 years if you needed to be, or some of people who are much further ahead on their journey, it could take them 18 months. But the journey between UEFA B and UEFA A can be 8 years, it can be longer, it can be slightly shorter. But I don't think anyone would get through a UEFA B to UEFA A unless you're an ex-professional footballer and there's a fast tracking option for you. But even that takes 3-4 years, I would imagine, from the point of going through the process. So, yeah, I'll be interested to hear how it is in Australia.
It's very upsetting for me, like when you see it in Australia, because they're not moving ahead with developing players and they're struggling with it. And we sort of going off track a little bit, but they, a lot of them feedback go, well, the Socceroos go well, the Matildas are going amazing. And I'm like, well, yeah, but the majority of the Matildas moved to England when they were 14 and they're being developed in the UK by the coaches there. We need to actually look at, and so as an example, to do your AFC B license and AFC A license, you could have both of them done quite easily inside 2 years. And for me, it's really hard that the hours aren't being put in, they're not being consistent. The big problem that as well is that they're trying to move to an academy style system similar to England, where you've got to have X amount of A license and B license coaches. But also it's a big hindering point because we know there's a lot of people who are effectively not earning the A license properly. And then there's the old argument that they're trying to compare. They're saying, an AFC A license is now as good as a UEFA A license. And we know it's not, because I know myself, like I've done the UEFA C and the B. That's how old I am. And then I'd done the Youth Award modules 1, 2, and 3. And then I'd done my A license, and I failed it miserably. Like I think it was 4 times because I thought I was good, but I wasn't. And finally, but I think mine was 9 or 10 years all up doing all of my badges. And I look back on it and think I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't want it any other way, because I think what you learn and what you can teach the players can really help them. And that's it's a real touching point that I think we're just trying to educate people over this side of the world to hopefully understand. We need to probably add a little bit more length into the education and not just be necessarily given the badges away, because the clubs need to have X amount of A and B licensed coaches, and it doesn't really help.
Yeah. No, I think the challenge for us in England, and the same for Australia, is that we don't want badge collectors. We're not looking. So, I had another role that I had for around 2-3 years. I was part of the English FA as a tutor for the level 1, so the first level of qualification that they can gain. And when I spoke with individuals, and it's mostly the new generation of youngsters coming through. So, keen people like myself, when I was back there 16, 18, I was like, right, my job is I want to be UEFA B coach within 3 years from this point. I'm like, well, you have not even passed your level 1 yet. And although level 1 was about safe and being fun and having fun and making sure that the actual practice was safe, they could get past of it in a couple of weekends and they'll be done in sort of 2 to 3 months. It's not very difficult to pass. But it's the basic foundational level. But the aspirations were within 3 years, 4 years, I want to be a UEFA B. I'm like, look, that's not going to happen here. That's not how this works. And it's just like, well, when I finish this course, I'm going to go straight up to level 2, and I've already booked this one. And I'm like, well, that's not development. That's not how it works. It's not like you go from under 10s. I don't know the formats in Australia, but it's not like it goes under 10s. It's 7v7. Now it's got to be 11v11 the next year. It's not. It's just jumping too fast for your own progress. It's you've got to reflect. You've got to get someone to watch you. You've got to have a mentor or someone to support you through that journey. And that's why it's taken me so long to get to where I am. And it's being patient with that and holding back from that. And I appreciate that there might be some prerequisites for roles in things like that and whatever else, but ultimately you've got to make sure that you're ready for that, because the one line that was given to me on the first day of the A license was, you'll pass this course if you are competent to take a session with a first team. So say everyone was working in the professional game, whether that be an academy at 14 years old or 18, under 18s, whatever it would be. He's going, look, if the director of football comes to you saying our manager's been sacked and then we need you to cover and take a session with the first team, you would be competent to take a session because you have got the A license and the backing and the understanding and knowledge of that. So that's the sort of question that we would always ask is if they had the opportunity to go and take an adult men's or ladies first team, would they be competent to take that session and know what they need to say and feel comfortable and confident to do that?
Yeah, amazing. Just for our listeners, we're actually just going to go to an ad break, but thank you to Stuart for joining us for the first part, and we'll be back with you in a few minutes.
Would you one day like to be a professional football player? Would you like to be part of our pro player pathway? What is the pro player pathway? It's an opportunity for all Australian football players aged between 10 and 23 who want to join us to become the next professional football player. On the pro player pathway, you get to join me and my team free of charge to an event all around Australia. When you join me, we're going to teach you the secrets of football in Europe. And one day, maybe, you could be gracing the Champions League final. Guys, over the next 12 months, we're going to be coming around all the major cities of Australia. And when we come around all the major cities, we're going to be running our free events everywhere we go. So guys, what have you got to lose? Nothing. It's a free event. It's for boys and girls aged 10 to 23. And I'm going to teach you the secrets of becoming a top European football player. Oh, and one final thing. We're going to be giving away 20 scholarships to join me on this program of a lifetime.
Hi everyone, welcome back after our advertisement. This is the second part of our Raymond's Wood podcast, and we're back with Stuart. Now, we were just touching on coaching badges and the amount of years it takes you to get them. And maybe potentially we touched on a little bit about maybe having a bit of a distance and a break. I remember back to doing my FA level 1, and I'd done it in the Liverpool County FA. And then I'd done my level 2, and I got that same bit of advice. I was trying to run off doing my badges as quick as I could, collecting them, and I got told very quickly by a mentor, a guy called Jason Whiff, who's worked for Aston Villa. He's also one of the top coach educators. I'm not sure if you ever met Jason before, Stuart, along the time.
No, it doesn't sound like a name I remember.
He headed up the Leicester City Women's for a couple of years as well, but his dad was Peter Whiff, who played for Aston Villa and scored the winning goal in the Champions League final. So a bit of history there. And I decided to go off to the US, and we obviously touched on you a little bit about traveling as well. And I think the best thing I ever learned was actually trying to realize that actually I wasn't that good of a coach, and I was only just starting my journey, and to just take them couple of years out and put stuff into practice. And I've done just over 4 years in the US. And I think when I look back, it was invaluable to just go and work in local communities and just work with them kids. And I think if you can work with them, you can probably work with any player. And that's what I learned. One of the big things that we get here is coaches get an A license and they instantly want to go and coach a senior team. And it's like, I noticed the change in the UK going back as far as 2010, just as we were on the cusp of the EPPP and the review that went on with the academy systems. I mean, what are your thoughts on coaches attaining high-level qualifications and only willing to work with senior football? Do you think our more qualified coaches should be working with the younger ones as well?
Well, it was interesting. I had my A licence and I was taking the under-10s. Wow. So when I passed the A licence, then it was more, the course was set up to accommodate everybody, and it was not to take away from the people that were working in the foundation phase, but it was like, see the 11v11 game as it is, and then break the parts down to where you are irrelevant to the age and stage of the players that you're working at. So my job, and the hardest part for me, was to break that down and to do that. And I think if you can break it down to its small parts, whether that's individuals or small groups, and look at the microscope and put the focus on those players and see where they are or what that situation needs, whether it's a technical, tactical, or physical or psychological aspect, you're going, okay, what is it? And then building it back up to saying, well, this is what it would look like if it was 11v11 game. For me, it's easier if you are an A licensed coach to go and work older. I think the motivation generally is in England is there's more money to be earned working older, and it's probably the status is seen with that, where you're working older and you can do more of the tactics and strategies. But ultimately, for me, it's not about me. It's not about what I want to do or what I need to do. It's more about what the players need. So, I'm not going to go, well, we're going to do a 4-diamond-2 or a 3-5-2 because that's what I want to do. That's the new sort of fad that's going out. It's more about going, what do the players need? What are they going to do to progress and what are they going to do to develop? So it's always with that the question in front for me going, where do my strengths and weaknesses lie, and can I expose myself to that? So I try as much as I can to do different age groups. I'm working around 13s, 14s, 15-year-old players consistently, but I'm also going, can I be around the 9s and 10s in academy football, out of academy football? Can I go and work 16s, 18s and get around what that looks like inside football, inside academy and outside academy, to see the levels and then try and push myself out of those biases or those like comfort zone and just going, this is what I'm about. Like we said, if you can do the mixed ability, mixed age group session, then you should be able to do anything. So, but it just keeps sharpening my tool around being able to do those different things and help a mate out who wants a session here or there that's different level of players or whatever it will be. So that only helps my coaching craft. So I don't know why you only want to limit yourself to working with the older players or the first team level players.
Yeah, it's one of the big things I try and encourage coaches in Australia is to challenge themselves to work with different age groups and to put themselves in those different scenarios. Now, talking about coaching and being a coach, one of the big things that we have in Australia, there's a lot of challenges in football as there is all around the world. Taking it back to yourself, Stu, what's probably one of your toughest challenges you've had in football over the years, and how did you manage to get around it?
Yeah, well, funny, it goes back to the coaching. One of them goes back to the coaching qualifications. I've got two here for you, Ray. So one of them was the coaching qualifications around, I actually failed my level 2 when I was 18. And it was probably because I didn't realise the importance of language. And I just said something. I made a comment around when we were defending, you get tight and you get to touch tight and I get too close to their backside or something along those lines. And the tutor was very strict when it's not appropriate language for 14 or whatever else. And said, look, the session would be fine, you'd pass. But then so 18, I've hit a real setback going, but I need to get this qualification to push myself on. And that was a bit of a challenge. So you have to wait a year until the course comes around again. So I'm like, no, I can't wait a year. I don't want to wait a year. Like, you basically said I'm good enough to be a level 2 coach. This is, but because I said one word, and that's probably that's the biggest bit of learning I've ever had, setback in that. So I just chased the tutors to say, look, can you get me a chance? And I didn't realise, but actually my college tutor at the time was also a level 2 tutor that was still on the books. So a bit of luck, but I've also used my network, if you like, and I would use that as to get myself an opportunity. So he said, look, no problem, I can do it next week for you. So within a week, I'd repassed the course and done it again. So, but that was a setback in that sense, that going just got to be careful with who you are and what you're about, and also not to when you are coaching, it's about those importance of language and things like that. The other big challenge that when I was looking at this question that we talked about was staying leading edge. So when we'll probably get to the point around talking about me working at Leicester City for 11 years, but when we've had Brendan Rodgers as our manager, a lot of what he talked about was, are we the leading edge of the game? How are we staying to the leading edge of the game? And that's the biggest challenge for us and myself, is staying ahead, staying as far as you can ahead of the game, and trying to be, see the current trends, the differences of players now. Like, you've got the Generation Z, now we're going into Generation Alpha, and the adaptation of those players, they all look different to what the ones that my experiences, and obviously probably your experiences as well, Ray, that these players are changing and they want different things and they demand different things, like technology's changing. we're wheeling out a TV to the side of a pitch for sessions, and it's like, well, we can watch live feedback of our session just like that at the touch of our hand, touch of the fingers, and then you go in. What does the more money and the parent expectations change, and the let alone the tactics and strategies of football, and what are we coaching, the different trends and the developments of what we're looking for. So it's just probably the biggest setbacks or biggest challenges is trying to deal with ongoing progress of football and chasing the next
As it evolves.
challenges that are going to come with. Yeah, it evolves all the time. So that would be the biggest sort of challenges that I have.
Yeah, that's two great examples for our listeners, and we've got a lot of mums and dads, especially the dads who are involved in coaching, and a lot of them do a lot of volunteer coaching. They'd love those couple of points. So, touching on, we spoke about Leicester City, and we'll get on to the Leicester City story a little bit. So, from a club point of view, obviously you've said you've worked for Manchester United, but just for our listeners, can you tell everyone who you've worked for and including who you're currently working for?
Yeah, so when I was at Manchester United Soccer Schools, I was doing some development centre stuff with Leicester City, and then during the EPPP, there was an opportunity to move full time football coaching with Leicester City. So that was 11 years ago, and that's where I've been really ever since as a football club. Bit of a lifer, if you like, being at Leicester City, and obviously I've been around the English FA and other bits and pieces, but generally the main body of my coaching work and life now has been at Leicester City, and it's been one hell of a journey and roller coaster ride that we've had throughout the club over the years.
Yeah, I mean, going on to Leicester City, obviously I was there for a couple of years when I was back there between 2010 and 14, in between working in Leicester and a little bit of work in PSG in Paris and France. And I was so fortunate, I think, to work with and see John Rudkin, who was the technical director of football at the time, head of the academy. And I believe he's now the director or the head of the football now. And I think for me, what was so inspirational was like Leicester City at the time were a championship club, and they were aspiring to be the best, and said, like, when the EPPP come around, we don't want to just play it safe and apply for Cat 2 or Cat 3. And also with Paul Cheney, who was there at the time, and it was all around, no, let's go for 1. And it was really interesting. I don't know if you remember it, but like we had some big clubs like Arsenal and Chelsea were pushing back against this EPPP, and they were like, we don't want any part of it. And I think John Rudkin was so smart and savvy to really push ahead and actually work with the FA on this and go, no, we're in. We want to be part of it. And I think the question I've got to you on that, do you think that's one of the reasons why not only did they go on and win the Premier League, but also why they've developed so many top talents, the likes of Harvey Barnes, Luke Thomas, we could go on and on, even Mr. Vardy. I mean, do you think that's the big reason why they've been so successful over the years, because they're always looking for that cutting edge?
Yeah, I think the club has progressed from the point when I joined. I think it was 6 weeks before the actual first EPPB audit, where you then start to be categorised. So where we are now, the club has grown hugely. Obviously, we've moved from one training facility to a brand new training facility that is arguably one of the biggest or the best in the country at the moment. I'm sure someone else will build something bigger and bigger, in a few years. But for now, we're blessed. And I think that's because the club have done a great job in progressing us through. I don't think anyone would have planned for us winning the Premier League and having the Champions League run that we did, or anything like that. But it's been managed well, and obviously the staff and John is still a main part of that. And I think a big body of the work where we develop players or we develop the club is because people are in the job for a long period of time. I've been there 11 years, and there's people that have been with me longer. So Paul and John are still much involved in everything that they're doing full time at the club. So a lot of staff have stayed for a lot of period of years, which I think does hold a little bit of stability in the club, and that does help to progress players and staff and the club in general.
Yeah, I think it's a testament, to the setup of the club. I remember working and talking to John on a daily basis. He always had the time to speak to you, which I always admired, because he was in such a pressurised role. And even like people like, I remember Susan Whelan at the stadium, I was doing a day or two at the community, but she always had time to talk to you. And it motivated me. I was there with a wife, and my daughter at the time was 2, and I wanted to spend 70, 80 hours a week at the club. And I think when I look back, I've learned a lot of those lessons and carried it into my football business in Australia with staff, is that actually understanding what motivates them. And once you understand what motivates them, you're going to have the best staff members ever. And we've just gone through that process. And I think it's an important part. Just for our listeners, we're about to go to our final break, and then we're going to come back for the most exciting part of the podcast. We've got a few little tricky questions for Stuart, but a big thank you, guys. And we'll be back with you in a few moments.
Hey everyone, we are coming around every major city in Australia over the next 12 months. We have got free objective football testing going on, guys. It's for boys and girls aged 10 all the way through to 18 years of age. The objective testing is quite simple. We'll put you through our 6 tests and it'll give you your results, physical, technical and tactical. And also, we're going to choose 16 winners to join us on an all expenses paid trip to Europe in 2024 and also 2025. Guys, what have you got to lose? Nothing. It's free to sign up. You get free objective testing and you'll get a free feedback, and maybe you'll be joining me at the Santiago Bernabeu in 2024 or 25.
Hi everyone, it's Raymond Woods. We're here with Stuart McClarty, and we've got probably one of the exciting parts of the episode now. We're just going to finish off the last few minutes. And so we're just speaking about Leicester City and some of the clubs you've worked at, Manchester United and working overseas in all the different countries. What's life looking like for you, Stuart, at the moment from a personal level? You're married, you got kids, and then the follow-on question from that is, what's plans for the future? What's your aspirations? Are you going to take on Manchester United's dreaded role in the future, or?
I don't think anyone wants that role at the moment. I don't think anyone wants that one. No, so yeah, I'm a husband, married to my wife Charlotte, and I also have 2 lovely children, 2 girls, Maisie and Lily, who are 5 and 2. Hopefully still asleep. Cross fingers that's still happening. Yeah, so like at home, yeah, it's a lively environment, and it's obviously just seeing them grow up, and that's the progress for me on that side of things. And then from a professional point of view, it will be more around moving into a leadership aspect role. So I'm currently doing 2 courses. One's with a new course with the Premier League, so a pilot course around future leaders. So it's around building leadership and building your skills to prepare for the next step in your career. And another one is like an apprenticeship scheme that's a course around level 5, course around leadership as well. So I'm really focusing on that. Whether that means I move into a head of coaching routes and more around leading coaches or developing coaches potentially, or it might be going down more of a sort of a directorship or an academy manager role or a director role type, where it's slightly off the field of coaching and more into sort of the general business of the club. So my aspirations are to keep developing. I'm a lifelong learner, to keep working on different things, keep learning different things, build my skills. But those roles are sort of a North Star for me, and we'll see where that takes me, and develop those things as they come, and see where the next step of my journey is really.
Yeah, it's so good to hear. Obviously, like, I think back when I was living back in the UK and working, it's so important to have that stability and balance of having a good life personally, but also with your job. But how do you find it balancing with 2 young ones? It's not easy, It's hard.
No, very, very difficult. And sometimes you just got to try and block that time off and have that time. I'm lucky enough to have some flexibility to do different things. But yeah, when you're in a bit of a difficult patch where things are, really busy and trying to do courses and whatever else, but you've got to have a very supportive partner. And then when I do my very best to cut off and turn the phone off when I'm at home. I've got about an hour drive home, so I can sound off, listen to the Raymond Woods podcast on the way, on the way there or way back. But I can cut off and do those things, and that helps to me sort of. So when I park up on the drive, I know that I'm done for the day, and I can switch off.
So, final question I've got to ask you, coach. Who's your favourite coach of all time? and the reason why, and what's the one lesson that you carry into your own coaching?
Favorite coach or the best coach? I think for at this minute in time, I can't go further than sort of manager would probably be Sir Alex Ferguson, but as you said, coach, I'm going to say Pep Guardiola.
Yeah.
I just think that he's transforming the way the game is played in this country. Yes, he's had a lot of talent, but I think it's the nature of when he does go into Champions League games or when he goes into these things, he has a style and he's very committed to that style. He won't adjust the way that he plays. In a possession to suit different teams or out of possession to suit different teams. He's been an expert on that, and I think he's also one of those disciples that other people are following. So there's other coaches and managers that are younger than him that are coming through now that are following a model or an idea of him as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, as you know, I'm a Liverpool fan, but I've seen a lot of Manchester City over the years. I've got some really good friends who work at City. We're very fortunate to be part of the press crew for the UEFA Champions League final this year in Istanbul, and we were there hoping City were going to do it, and they finally done it. And it's a testament to everything that he's laid. You can have all the money in the world, but you've still got to get the players on the park. You've still got to win them games. And they've finally done it. So it's been really good. Now we're going to be back in January, and we've got a trip over to the UK. We've got about 20 players going across. They're trialling at various clubs and academies, at Stephen Gerrard's academy, Tranmere Rovers. We're doing a bit of work over at Bolton with Danny. So we'd love to have a catch up with you and have a follow-on podcast if possible, face to face, and maybe grab a coffee somewhere, and maybe Northampton, and if that's where you're living, and we'll have a catch up from there. It'd be amazing if you can give us another hour of your time.
Yeah, it'd be good to catch up with everyone and find out how things are going, and we can delve into whatever coaching topics or anything else that we want to talk about. I'd love
to see the new training ground. I've not seen it, so it'd be nice to come along and have a little look if they'll let me in.
If you want to get your 10k steps in, you can definitely do that there.
That sounds really good. So everyone, all our listeners and followers, a huge thank you to Stuart. We just spoke about giving up time and personal time, and he's up at 5 a.m. in the morning. So I hope all our listeners and followers and coaches appreciate Stuart giving us our time. And a big thank you. And we'll be back with the Raymond's Wood podcast in a week or so with our next episode. Thanks, Stuart, and good luck with the rest of the season at Leicester City.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks for your time. Cheers. Thanks for you guys.